So a very, very, very warm welcome to this introduction to EFT for people with high empathy. And I created this especially for the strengths community. And I'm feeling very privileged to be between people who all know their strengths and feel in touch with those things that so many other people don't know about. So I'm very happy for us to be together. I know there's many different time zones. In fact, there were going to be different time zones because now at the moment it's UK and South Africa, as far as I understand, in the school live here. And some people may join us along the way, but there were people registering from the US in different time zones, or even as far as uh, uh, Manila. I think I've forgotten the country now, but all sorts of people in this community. So very happy to be here with you today. And, it's very good for me to be in the presence with people with relationship themes and perhaps high empathy, because I'm always a little bit nervous in front of a call like this, before a call like this. And I thought, well, who better to be in the room with um, people with high empathy, right? Because it doesn't matter if I make a mistake, you'll probably just go, oh. So it felt very safe to me to come into this room today because everybody here is a stranger to me. I know nobody here. And so with my high relator, like, oof, I'm not so sure about strangers. The fact that it's relational themes felt like, oh, I can relax. So I'm in a safe place. And I do hope you feel the same way. At least by the end of the call, I absolutely think you will. Um, we are in a different, very difficult time in human history, I think. So I just want to acknowledge that. It's been a very difficult few years for many of us. And if you've got many relational talents, of course, that's going to have an impact as well, especially if you've got high empathy to try and support people with many different challenges. There's been so many changes and challenges. The world's just not the same place. And so that's exactly why we're here, is to learn a tool that can help you with all of those things, the emotional fallout, the stress, the whatever, all of that, the change, the big change brings into our lives. Also, we may be a lot of people in this room with different levels of skill and knowledge. And what have you heard about EFT? Maybe you use it already, maybe you don't know it at all. And wherever you are on that scale, it's completely okay. So just for me to get a sense of where you are with EFT, who here has never used it and you've just heard of it, but you want to know more about it? Okay, that's great. So anybody here who already uses it? So, I mean, we're 3 here in this room, so nobody here uses it already? Okay, perfect. So doesn't matter. I've made this call very, very practical. So just take what's good for you at the end of today, and it's going to be just. I absolutely know that by the end of this call, you're going to feel like, something can help me from now on. So let's just do a short little exercise to get really fully present in this room, because you may have had a long day behind you already. So we can just start with getting comfortable in your chair. So just feel the back. If you've got a back against which you can rest, so just feel that back against the chair against your back, and just get comfy and start with a nice deep breath in and out. And if you're comfortable with it, you can close your eyes, because I'm going to ask you in a moment to just go into your imagination. So whichever way is more comfortable for you is perfect. So in your imagination, I would like you to see or imagine or sense that there is a big hook. Maybe it needs to be a row of hooks. And on this hook, you're going to hook and or hang everything that is troubling you in this moment. Could be the state of the world. It could be something you had to do today, something you have to do tomorrow. Whatever it is that's like pulling at your attention and may take your attention away. Busy days. Just put that all, hang it onto that hook. Put them all up there. If it's people you're carrying, you just imagine putting them in a bag and hanging on them on that hook. And then, can you see them there in your mind's eye? And just know that they will be safe there, absolutely safe until the end of the call, when you can pick all of them up and do what you need to do. And just take one more nice deep breath in and out. Let it out like a nice big sigh. Good. And when you're ready, you can just come back to the room and just notice what's around you. Sort of just fully come back, like there's this and there's this around me. If you want to, you can touch yourself and just feel your way back into this moment in this space. Good. And so before we begin, just a few little logistics. The first one always for me is confidentiality. I want everybody to hear to feel safe and also the people watching the recording. So I ask that we make a confidentiality agreement in this way that you will not share outside of this room what somebody else shared in here. Does that make sense to you? So if you agree with that, just put up your hand and everybody can feel safe with that. Thank you. Brilliant. So we're going to share mostly in the chat box because everybody can type together and it helps us to make the best use of our time. And I'm also going to share this recording with my community and some other people in the strengths community. So if you type only, then your face will not show up on the recording. So there's a bit of extra safety and confidentiality for you. And of course, I may not use your name when I read feedback on the chat box, just for some extra safety and privacy for you here. So when there's a question or feedback, if a question comes up for you at all during any part of the call, and I may not be at a place yet where I can look at the chat box, feel free to type it in the chat box, and just pre-frame it by, make in capital letters, type question, and then type your question after that. So it'll be easy for my eyes to catch that. So at any time, just put your question in the chat box and I'll have left spaces for questions. So to start us off, why don't we go to the chat box right now? I want you to type 4 things in there. It's not going to be very long. First one is just your name and where you're from in the world. And then what number is empathy for you in your CliftonStrengths? And if it's not high, it doesn't matter at all. It's not about it being high. I just want a sense of the people in the room. And the 4th thing is, why did you register? What do you want from this class? And then we'll set that as the intention for you to have today, because I know how powerful it is to set intentions and make sure that you get what you want. So I'm just going to pause there and wait a little minute or so for you to type. Yes. So my learner is very keen to learn. Love it. I love hearing about learners. Yeah. Brilliant. And there's somebody from the UK, empathy at number 6, although it feels higher. And here to learn a new skill. Yes, when empathy is present, I think it can feel particularly strong. It's a bit like responsibility, right? And welcome to the lady who's just joined us. I'm not going to say your name. I'm making this recording safe for everybody because I'm going to share the recording afterwards. So please feel free to type in the chat box your name, where you're from, where's empathy on the list for you, the number, where it's at on your CliftonStrengths, and also what would you like to get from this call? Why are you here? What did you want to learn, or what interested you about this class? So, and while you type, I'm just going to read some of the other ones. From South Africa, but living in the UK, studying social work. That sounds familiar. I've not heard about EFT, but I'm interested to learn more about it. And empathy is number 3. Ah, yes. I can understand you're in social work, right, with that big heart of yours. And I'm so glad that you're here to learn about EFT and maybe how that can help you and some of your clients, perhaps your, I don't know what you call them, patients, clients, the people that you're going to be helping. Okay, so we are going to get started because I prepared a few slides, and I'm not going to kill you with a PowerPoint. How do they say death by PowerPoint? That's not what I'm going to do. This is going to be very, very interactive, but sometimes I find that me talking and you seeing the few little points on the slides just help all the learning to take place. So I'm going to share my screen. And then we'll get going. Can everybody see? Is there a slideshow popping up for you? Okay. It's always weird behind the the thing here, and I'm not sure, are you seeing it or not? So beautiful. EFT for highly empathic people. So what we're going to do today, I'm just going to make sure that it's a bit strange for me because I know that when I look at my notes, it looks like I'm not looking at you. So just forgive that. Sometimes it's going to look like I'm looking away from you. So we're going to do just a very brief introduction to EFT and how it works and the background of it. I don't want to spend hours of, like we don't have hours, but lots of time on the theory behind it. I want us to have the experience of it so you can really feel what it's like for you. So I'm going to ask you to do some reflection exercises. You're going to chat or participate in the chat box, not so much verbally today. And we're actually going to use EFT to discharge some stress and some emotions that may be present for you. So you can really feel how it is. And then at the end of the call, I think we'll have a chance to just talk about how to use EFT in your daily life, because that's what I find is we can learn about a tool, but if we don't use it, what's the point, right? So I want to make it practical for you. So the first bit here is this beautiful, beautiful quote from Daniel Pink that says, empathy is about standing in somebody else's shoes, feeling with his or her heart, and seeing with his or her eyes. Not only is empathy hard to outsource and automate, but it makes the world a better place. And I'm guessing that so many of us agree with that, right? This is actually exactly what empathy does. And we want people to receive the gift of empathy. We want them to feel like this lady in that picture, like, like heard, seen, validated for whatever the emotions are. However, I'm guessing if you've got empathy high, you know this picture as well. Yeah, who knows this? The burden of empathy. It can feel like, okay, so now that person feels better, but I'm carrying it. So that's exactly why we're here today. EFT is such a tool, and I'm just going to share the briefest of briefs, little bits of my story with you, so you just know where I've come from and why this has been helping me. I started as a computer programmer, well, musician and a computer programmer. And when I met my husband, who's now my husband, I shared with him I've got this fear of the dentist, and I don't want to go, but I have to. And he said to me, he knows about this strange thing. He doesn't really know if it'll work, but maybe we can just watch this video together. So there was some DVDs that I could watch, and it fascinated me from the moment I watched the first, like, how can this work? How can this strange thing actually do something helpful for us? But I was fascinated in such a deep and intense way that I knew this was going to be my third career. So I resigned from my programming job and I started doing healing courses. And I've been doing this now for 16 years because I found it so incredibly helpful in my own life. I have many relational talents in my top 10, and empathy is number 3. Relator is there, developer is there, harmony is there. What else is there? Individualization. So all the talents that sense other people and that want to make a difference for other people and want to help in some way had a really hard time throughout my entire life, and it led to actually depression for me. It led to lots of anxiety because all these people around me that were having a hard time, and I didn't know how to help him. I had no tool, nothing. So I was on antidepressants for a very long time of my life until I learned these tools like EFT, and there was another one as well. And it's just made the biggest difference for me to have a tool that I can use every single day to decompress from the stresses of life, from when my mom is having a hard time. I've used EFT to help my mother, to help my sister, not so much my father. But it's just the tool that's made the biggest difference for me. And I want to give you that gift today. Like, there is something that can really make a difference so we don't have to carry, even if you don't have high empathy, even if it's just like, I want to learn a new tool. That is something so amazing that I can't wait to share with you today. So, yeah, that's just a tiny bit about my story. And let's just continue with the slides. So, what then on earth is EFT? It stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and some people say Emotional Freedom Technique, but it actually has the S at the end. That's the way the creator of EFT named it, because there's multiple different techniques in there, and I'm going to teach you the most basic one today so that you can use that for yourself. So what is it really? In essence, it's a very simple stress relief tool or method that can help to calm you down very quickly. Anyone can learn it. And it helps for us to be able to, when we are calmer, we can make better decisions, right? When we are stressed out, frazzled in our minds, there's actually the prefrontal cortex that needs to make the analyzing decisions, plans, goals, all of that, doesn't get enough blood flow because all the blood flow goes to the midbrain where the stress things happen. So we can make better decisions, and then we can actually also take appropriate action, because we like frozen like a deer in the headlights. Not much action can happen, or not wise action can happen. So like I already said, it actually calms the amygdala, the part of your brain that checks out for threat all day long. But between 12 and 100 times a second, that piece, the amygdala, is checking out for threats in the environment. What is going to make me unsafe? So if it's checking like that all the time, there's a huge amount going on under the surface. So when we do this tapping thing, I'm going to show you exactly where the points are. It literally sends calming signals to that part of your brain. It calms it down. We feel safer. We can think clearer, and we can make better decisions and take action. And then who created this technique? I'm just going to share that his name was Gary Craig. He was actually a Stanford engineer of all people, and he was interested in peak personal performance. Why can some people have an easy time with creating success and just going forward in life, and others have a harder time with that? So he put together some pieces of Eastern and Western philosophies and psychology, and some bits and pieces. I'm not going to go into much detail there, but he put it all together. And because he was an engineer, he wanted one single recipe that would work every single time. So he brought some simplicity and like a simple recipe, step-by-step thing to follow that some other people may not have done because they had all the psychology knowledge and so on. So he just brought simplicity to this technique, and it was created in the early 90s already. So this technique's been going for a long time. There is major amounts of research going on at big universities. So it's being proven as a peer review. These big words that I'm not finding right now, but the research is there, and it's wonderful to see that. So that's a little bit about EFT. So what on earth do we do with EFT when we do EFT? In its essence, what we do is we lightly tap on stress relief points in the body, on the body, while we tell the truth about how we're feeling, and we add a little statement of acceptance at the end. So it's very, very simple, and I'm going to teach you step by step how to do this. And an example might sound like this. So we have some words that we say, and we have some motions that we do, just tapping on some points. And some of the words might be like this. Say you're feeling sad. You can say, even though I'm sad, that's just the truth of it, I soothe and comfort myself. So that's some of the words we're going to use. Another example might be, even though I'm overwhelmed by whatever is going on, I soothe and comfort myself. And I'm going to teach you exactly how to put the tapping motion and the words together. So the EFT points, that's the next piece we need to learn, right? We need to know where to tap. So I'm going to just let you follow along with me. So let's learn about the points. And they are so simple to follow. They literally go from the top to the bottom. So each point is on the body below the previous point. So it's easy to remember. So just follow along with me. Actually, the first point is, so just touch this point and I'll teach you just now what to do with it. So when you tap, and I literally mean light tapping. So you just tap in a very, very soft motion. You don't have to tap hard at all for this to have an effect. So this is the first point. It's called the side of the hand point. Then the next point we're going to go to is top of the head. So there are many sort of points that cross there. So you can tap with a flat hand or just like in a little circle so that you cover some of those points. So that's the next piece. Then the next point is, I'm just taking my French out the way, is where the eyebrows start. Can you see exactly where the hairs of the eyebrows start? So you have to be able to feel your eyebrow hairs when you do the tapping. So again, you can use 2 fingers or 1 finger, just whatever is comfortable. And when we learn, we just start on both sides of the body. And the next point is, we call it side of the eye. So I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see. It's right where the bone of the eye stops. So it's not deep on the temple, it's right there where the bone of the eye stops. And again, you can use both sides. So just tap very lightly there on the side of the eye. Call it the side of the eye point. In the under the eye point is in line with your pupil, just underneath your eye. And as well, it's just on the bone where the bone stops. So not deep on your cheek over here, just where the bone is. So I'm not going to tap the side because my boom is in the way. So you'll see me tapping on the one side, but you can use both. Good. My glass is also slightly in the way, so as long as you sort of get in that general area. The next point is under the nose. Oh, it's under the nose, just on that little line. And because it's in the middle, we just do one hand. So just lightly tapping there. And then the next point is in the hollow of the chin. So not on the chin point, hollow of the chin. And the next point we call the collarbone point, although it's not exactly on the collarbone. So just to take this out the way here, you see where those bony bits end, right? I'm going to do this and you can really see where it ends. But just go down about an inch, or like in South Africa, we would say like 2 centimeters or so. And you see it's not exactly on the bone, it's just below. There, we call it the collarbone point, but it's just below the collarbone point. So now I'm going to stop doing that. Okay, the next point is under the arm, and I'm just going to like rise up slightly so you can see it's in line with, it's where your bra strap is. So just on the side of the body. And if there's a man watching the recording, it's in line with your nipple. And you can tap like crossed, or cross your arm over, or you can tap on the same side with each hand, or you can do both sides. So you can tap like this. There's many different ways to skin this cat. Okay, and then the next point I want to teach you, and you may not see this if you watch other EFT training, you may not see this point, but it's a point that came onto the scene a little bit after Gary Craig created EFT. It's the wrist point, because there's actually many points going to the fingers as well. So when we tap on the inside of the wrist, just a flat wrist like that, we actually reach many of those points as well. So all of these are the points we're going to be using today. Okay, and then after we've tapped all these points, what we usually do is a nice deep breath in. I don't know if you already started feeling a little bit of like, it's like a tiny relaxation coming in. And I want to name that often when we tap, I will see yawns. I will see big sighs. I just saw the yawn. That's why I thought I'd mention it so you don't feel bad, because EFT has that effect. It literally helps us to relax. It brings down all the stress. So yawns, sighs, people even burp. So don't be surprised if any of that happens to you. It's all signs of relaxation, and I love it when I see it. So you please go ahead and yawn today. Okay, so back to what I want to share with you. Oops, that's the incorrect one to share. That one. Okay, so we've learned the point. So the EFT recipe, how do we put all the ingredients together? Because earlier I shared some words that we could use, and now I shared the points. So how do we put all of this together? First of all, with EFT, we have to have a problem to work with. So we can choose any problem. You can choose something that happened yesterday, something that might happen tomorrow that you're afraid of, or somebody that irritated you, or somebody that you got really cross with, or something that happened way back when. For today and for our first exercise, I'm going to ask you to just focus on general stress. So for now, you can just like start thinking, okay, like in general, how stressed am I? And what we do is we rate it 0 to 10. So 0 is no stress, and 10 is I'm really feeling stressed. I'm as stressed as I could possibly be. So if you could just in your mind, in your own mind now, if you try and figure out how stressed am I really. It doesn't have to be a scientific answer, and it doesn't have to be the same answer today as tomorrow, today and tomorrow. So how do I know if I'm stressed? There will be some thoughts. Maybe there's a sensation in my body, like there's butterflies in my stomach, or a tightness in my chest, or I feel a clenching in my throat. Like, notice what happens in your body when I say stress. What are you stressed about? Just bring that into your awareness. Is there an emotion? Maybe you already know it's fear, or it's anxiety, or it's whatever the emotion, sadness, disappointment. There's so many emotions that can lead to stress. And just rate that for yourself. And jot that down on a piece of paper, because in a moment we can actually work with that. Okay, and I'll give you another chance to reflect on that in a moment. So what do we do? So first thing is choose a problem, find your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions about that, rate it out of 10. That's our first little steps. Then we do a tapping round with the words, and the words will be just like, even though I'm so stressed. So I'm going to make it as simple as possible for you today, even though I am so stressed. And I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to do this in a moment. So we do a tapping round on all those points that I showed you just now. After the tapping round, we take a nice deep breath. We check in again with ourselves, like, how do I feel now? We rate it again. And if it's not a complete 0 yet, then sometimes we need to repeat the procedure, and we just rinse and repeat. And we want to get it as close as possible to 0. But you know what? If we've gone from a 10 stress to a 5 stress, there's a huge difference. We can do lots of different things, right? So that's the basic recipe. Problem, find the thoughts and emotions, rate it out of 10, do the tapping round, check in again, and then repeat if necessary. Okay, and we're going to experience it together right now. So let's start. Before I go on it, are there any questions so far? And if you have a question, just type it in the chat box while I take a quick sip of water. And by the way, if you have water with you, please go ahead and drink some water too. And then just join me. Let's just do a nice little stretch, because we've been sitting here for a half an hour. And we want to be kind to our bodies as well. So just nice big stretch. Take a nice big breath if you want to. Just move your body. Okay, engaging all the senses. Okay. So I ask you to check in on your stress level. So just give it in this moment. Just like if you had to ask yourself, how stressed am I? Just let a number pop up for you. And it doesn't have to be scientifically correct. And just jot down that for me in the chat box. So, and if you've got an awareness of an emotion that you're carrying, or a sensation in the body, just jot that down as well. Because just now we're going to check in with that after we've done the tapping. So, and if you're watching the recording, please go ahead and do the same. So we can do our first round. Okay. So there's a stress level 7 and a 5, and there's some fear, and there's another 7. Okay, 5 and a 7, that's quite high numbers. So let's go ahead and do some tapping. 5, 7, 7. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to just follow my lead. If there's a question afterwards, we will answer it. But for now, just do what I do and say what I say, and we're just going to tap about the stress. So we start here on the side of the hand, and just say this out loud. I'm guessing you've got nobody there with you, so you can say it out loud if you want. So say, even though I'm feeling the stress right now, I soothe and comfort myself. Even though I'm feeling the stress right now, I soothe and comfort myself. And even though I am feeling the stress right now, I soothe and comfort myself. Okay, so we do this part 3 times. We said the whole what the problem is, and I soothe and comfort myself, and we do this on the side of the hand. Now we just choose a little reminder phrase, and it's just going to be something short, like to remind me of the problem, the stress. We're going to use that, and we say the reminder phrase on every point that we're going to use now. So just follow along with me. Okay, so tap on the top of the head. I'm feeling the stress. Okay, tap on the eyebrow points. All the stress that I'm feeling. Okay, tap on the side of the eye. All the stress that I'm aware of. Good. Then under the eye, remember you can tap both sides. My boom is just in the way. All the stress that I'm aware of. Good. Under the nose, all the stress in my body and mind. And in the hollow of the chin, I'm feeling so stressed. So literally we can repeat the same words, because what we're doing is we're tuning into the problem and really bringing it up into our awareness. And then the tapping does the work to relieve the stress. We'll talk about it some more. Collarbone point, all the stress in my body. Under the arm, feeling all the stress. And then inside of the wrist, all the stress that I'm aware of, and maybe even not aware of. Good. Now rest your arms. Take a nice deep breath in and out. Okay. So our recipe says, now check in again. So if you just ask yourself, so how stressed am I now? Let the number come to you. And if you were aware of an emotion earlier or a place in your body where you felt something, just check that. Is it different? Has it shifted to a different place? Is it higher? Is it lower? Does it feel different in some way? So just drop that number for me in the chat box as well. So in fact, so it's easy for me, so I don't have to scroll up and read names. So just drop went from, 7 to 5 or 5 to 3 or 7 to 9, whatever the case is for you. Great, 7 to 5, that's very good. 5 to 3, 7 to 6, brilliant. So there's some good moving here. And we've done, it was probably a minute of tapping, right? So everybody so far came down. Not sure if there's one more. So let me know if it went up or down for you, because here's what can happen. 5 to 4, brilliant. Here's what can happen. Sometimes it can go up when we've done a round of tapping. And sometimes the reason for that is because actually up to now I've been sort of trying to squash it down. And when I'm focusing on it, I'm just so aware of it suddenly. So it can feel like it goes up. If that's the case for you, the best thing you could do is just do another round. It's not the tapping that made it worse. It's like, oh, you're suddenly so aware of it now. It wasn't very up for you before. We practice very much all the time to just keep our emotions at bay, right? So just do another round of tapping. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to maybe just jot one word for me in the chat box about either what you are stressed about or the emotion that you feel. If you say stress, what is it that you're really feeling? Stress is a wide word, right? So it can be fear, it can be anxiety, it can be a loss, it can be sadness, it can be, I don't like what this person has done to me. So just jot a short little something for me in the chat box, because it works better the more specific we are. And I want to be able to use some of these words, and it'll still be private because nobody will know who it's from. And then we're going to do another round of tapping with that. Some anxiety, some fear, right? Okay, some fear of COVID and lack of control. Yeah, those are all things that are so familiar to me. So I think we're all in good company here. We all know these emotions, and usually there's not a lot that we can do. People say, well, forget it, just don't feel like that. How do we do that? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some tapping. So I'm going to be bringing in some of the words that you've typed over there, and then if it's not a word that resonates for you, just leave it out, replace it with your word, but just so that in fact we can tap with somebody else's words and still get the benefit, because it's amazing how our system draws the parallels between us and somebody else's world. We are, in fact, a lot alike, more than we think. So let's do another round of tapping. So tap on the side of your hand and say, even though I've got this fear and anxiety, I soothe and comfort myself. Even though I feel a lack of control, I'm not in control. I soothe and comfort myself. And even though I'm aware of this fear and anxiety and this lack of control and all this uncertainty, I soothe and comfort myself. And then we tap through the points. We'll start on the top of the head. All this anxiety that I'm feeling. And now I'm going to say a sentence and you fill in the blank. Okay? This anxiety in my, and say where in your body you feel that. And then go to side of the eye. All this fear and anxiety. Under the eye. I feel this fear in my. Good. And then under the nose. This lack of control. On the chin point. I just don't feel in control right now. And that could feel pretty scary, right? None of us like to be out of control. And then tapping on the collarbone, all this fear and anxiety that I'm feeling. Under the arm, I just don't like not being in control. It's hard. Yeah. And the inner wrist point, I'd rather be in control and make things the way I want them to be. Okay, and rest your arms. Take a nice deep breath in and out. And then check in again with your number. Ask yourself again, that fear, that anxiety, the lack of control that you were aware of. Check in how that is right now. And just again, just put that number in the chat box for me. So it went from an X to an X. Brilliant. A 5 to a 2. That's very, very, very good going. A 7 to a 4. Very good. Very good. Wow. Yeah. Life feels so much more manageable, right? If we don't have this thing looming over us. And there's a 5 to a 4. Okay. Very good. That's so I'm hearing that the 5 to a 4 is still a little bit the same as the first round. Like it hasn't moved. There's somebody typing to me privately. So if you want, I don't know if you're doing that on purpose, but you can type it to everybody. So if you want, otherwise keep it private. So somebody's went from a 5 to a 4 in the first round, and the second round is again a 5 to a 4. So that can happen. And again, the more specific we get, like what exactly is it that I'm afraid of? Is it afraid of, will I get very sick? Will I have to go to hospital? Will I, what are the pictures? We all have pictures in our minds about the things that we're afraid of. And that kind of thing is when we focus more on that, we really help the specific thing to relieve. So I need space to breathe. Ah, is that what came up for you? I need space to breathe. Yes, yes. Fantastic. And does it feel like a relief to realize that? Is it like an insight like, that's what brilliant. That is a beautiful example. So I love that these examples are coming out so I can share with you what happens here. When we do some tapping with EFT, often what happens is we call it a cognitive shift. It's like something has happened in the brain to suddenly see something from a different perspective. And that perspective wasn't available to us before because all the stress hormones were floating around. And Amy amygdala was saying inside, check out for the danger. This is not safe. This is not safe, right? So when we bring down the stress level like that, we have access to different parts of our brain. We can actually have different thoughts. And those thoughts will pop up like, comes out like mist goes away in front of the sun comes out. and that's what can happen for us. um, okay, so I wonder if I'm going to ask that maybe you just type in there one more time for me another word maybe, so somebody has had some relief like, I know what it's about now, I need space to breathe, right? For those of you who's still sitting at like the number hasn't changed much, can you type in the box for me exactly what it is that you might be afraid of or the anxiety? Like, doesn't have to be going into personal details, but just like, is it like, I'm afraid this might happen. So just a little something so I can help you just make a little bit more progress with this EFT thing so you can feel the relief as well. If your number has come down, somebody here went from maybe a 7 to a 4, so it may not feel very bothersome anymore. Then I'm going to ask you to think about one of the things that I asked you to bring to the class, like what person is bothering you, or who are you carrying, or who irritates you, or that thing that's like, it sets me off every time I think about it. So think about something like that so we can keep helping you make progress with other examples too. Okay. Okay, so there's a couple big things here. Looking after my vulnerable mother-in-law and very afraid of getting COVID and giving it to her. Yeah, that is a huge thing. And I can so understand that that fear is pretty big. And unless we address it very specifically, it's like too vague. We're tapping too vaguely. It's like, around the surface that we're tiptoeing. So I'll help you. Is it okay if I help you to in this session? We're going to just get really specific with that. And then somebody else says, um, losing a family member to cancer. So that is a pretty big thing as well. So there's some big health things here. So maybe for everybody to benefit from this, can you think of somebody else? If your number has come down low enough, is there somebody else whose health you're worried about? Or maybe your own health is not too great. There's a health thing for you. And we're going to do some tapping with these examples and then just see how it shifts for you as well. So let me just do a little quick check-in. Is everybody got something to tap with in this round right now? So we're going to work on health things, but if you've got something else, just bring that to mind. Everybody got something where you're not sure what to tap with. Yeah? And I'm going to say Helen. So have you got something to tap around? You got, okay, perfect. And so there's some big things. So let's just start with that. Now I'm going to elaborate the words a little bit because I've been doing this for a long time and sometimes I just tune into words or things that come for me. So I'm going to do that. And if it's not true for you, just say another word and just make it your own. Okay. Because tapping works the best when we're completely truthful, when we don't try and cover over the truth or try and make it look pretty. Now we need to be exactly truthful. And if there's a word that doesn't resonate with you, just replace it with your word. We don't want like the body or the mind to feel resistant, like, no, this is not right for me. So make it true for you. Okay. So even though I'm very afraid of getting COVID and passing it on to somebody else, and that thought terrifies me. I can almost feel like it squeezes here. Yeah, it squeezes the breath out of me. Yeah, I soothe and comfort myself. Even though I'm terrified of giving somebody else COVID, it terrifies me. I soothe and comfort myself. And even though it terrifies me, if I think the thought that I could pass COVID on to somebody else, a vulnerable person, I soothe and comfort myself. Okay, and then tap with me on all the points. I'm terrified of giving somebody else COVID. The eyebrow point, it's such a scary thought. Side of the eye. Of course I'm scared of that. It's a big thing. Under the eye. I'm looking after a vulnerable person. And I want to make sure that they're okay and safe. And I'm just filled with all of this fear and terror about making them unsafe. And then this is just me guessing. And then, of course, there's other repercussions after that. Yeah. I fear all the repercussions after that as well. All of the things that could go wrong. Okay. And just pause, or rest your arms, pause, and take a nice deep breath in. Good. And if this was your issue, just check in with yourself. How's it feeling now? That fear, that terror, I could pass it on to somebody else. The number out of 10, just drop that for me in the chat box. I just want to see how it's going. Or what you notice. Perhaps you notice there's suddenly some sadness, or there's suddenly a different emotion. It's not fear anymore. It's something else. So just put that in the chat box for me as well, and let me know. Anybody else who tapped, you had your own issue that you were tuned into, tune into that issue and just notice how it's now, and just give me feedback in the chat box as well. So it went from an X to an X, or I notice a different thought now, or I notice a different emotion, or it's gone higher. Just let me know how you're doing. Good. 4 to a 3, that's some good numbers. A 5 to a 7, so it's gone up, right? Is what I'm seeing. Yeah, and I'm guessing it's because here's an interesting thing with EFT. Before I get to that, another person feels calmer. That's great news. Wonderful work. It's gone higher for me too. So there's 2 higher people and 2 lower people. So this is perfect. It's a perfect example of what happens. See, our issues are not just a tiny little thing. Usually our issue is like, actually it's a little umbrella for many different puzzle pieces that's inside. And sometimes that's what happens is we tap for one thing and we think it's only this thing, but suddenly we start noticing, oh, but there's that and there's that and there's that. And like, it's like, oh my goodness, there's a lot actually here. And so it can feel to us like the number is climbing higher. Or what happens is the original thing went down, but a new thing jumped up that says, oh, actually, I'm now your new fear, or here's another piece of it. So that's what can happen with EFT. So something else came down, something else went up. And if I was with you in a private session, this would be very easy for us to go into, and just for me to ask, so what's showing up now? And I could help you just to go very specific. In a class situation, especially when I'm asking for chat feedback, it's a little bit different. And I still want to make sure that everybody gets some nice relief. So the second person that said it's gone higher for me too. type a little something for me in the chat box about what's gone higher. You know, is it an emotion? Is it a thought that you're now aware of? What is the thing that you're aware of that's suddenly very high? And the original person whose words we used about the vulnerable person, do the same. So tell me, what is it that's gone higher? Is it different fears? Like, what if this happens? So try and unpick it a little bit. Like, what exactly is this thing that's popped up for me that's higher now? And the other people as well. So if it's lower for you, thanks, I'll get to that a little bit now. If you had an issue that was lower for you, just to continue tapping with that one and see if we can get even lower. So just focus in on that just before we start the tapping round. Try and focus on where exactly is it in your body. It helps us a lot if we body focus and we kind of look at where is it in my body. It's like in my chest, or I feel it in my solar plexus or my belly, or I get a cramp in my shoulder. Where is it in my body when I think about that thing? Okay. It's gone higher for me. It frustrates me. So it's in my throat and chest. So there's frustration in throat and chest. Do I get that right? Okay, good, good. And is waiting for the other person. Sorry, I have to drink so much water. My goodness, I'm talking too much. Okay. And we'll start finishing off in a little bit. I know we can, there's a lot more that we can do with this, doing the tapping and some things that I wanted to share, and we'll see how far we get. But you will get the slides from me after this. Tomorrow I'll send you the recording and the slides, so whatever I didn't get to cover today will be in there. Okay. So I'm going to start tapping with the frustration so long. So anybody got some frustration? If you don't know what else to tap for, just use frustration, something that you are frustrated about. Okay, so just start tapping with me. I'm just going to read this. So keep tapping on the side of the hand while I read, due to allowing myself to think about it. Okay, I'm struggling to know if I should be isolating. Yes. Okay, feeling it in your chest. So good for noticing the feelings. I'm going to use this in our tapping right now because somebody else had throat and chest as well. So let's use this. Okay. Even though it frustrates me and I don't know what to do, should I do this or should I do that? And I feel all of this in my chest and throat. I soothe and comfort myself. And even though it really frustrates me, this thing, and because I'm now really thinking about it, it's all coming to the surface and I don't know what to do. I soothe and comfort myself. And even though I truly don't know what to do, and it's very frustrating, and I feel it's in my throat and chest, I soothe and comfort myself. And then step through the points. This frustration, it's all coming to the surface now. And I feel everything in my throat and chest. I'm suddenly so aware of how big this thing is. There's actually a lot under the surface here. There's a lot to consider. And truth is, I don't know what to do. It's hard to know what the right thing is to do. And it's hard to be out of control. And I feel all these emotions about it. And right now, I'm just acknowledging it all. Okay. Rest your arms. Nice deep breath in. Okay. Good. Good. So there's some big, big things in the room, and I'm guessing we're not going to resolve all of it today because it's some complex pieces. One last time, just check in with what it is that you're feeling or experiencing right now. How's your throat and chest, if that's where you were feeling it just now? If you were tapping with something completely different, just check in with that. Like, how are you feeling right now? And again, just drop a little note for me in the chat box. And then I just have a few more things to share with you about EFT and the use of it before we come to the end of our call. So 5 to a 4. That's very good. Well done. So it went up first from a 5 to a 7, and then now it's gone to a 4. So that's very good. That's what I'm seeing. 4 to a 3. That's good. Yeah. And calmer, and it's good to accept. Okay, it feels better. Yeah. We can't always change situations in life, right? We just sometimes stuck with a situation we can't do much about. But when we can get to a calmer place about it, it's like, okay, that's the way it is for now. And a bit more acceptance. There's different things possible from that place. So well done for more acceptance. That really helps. Beautiful. Okay. So I'm guessing you can understand big issues may not get resolved in a few minutes of tapping because there are different pieces. There's different puzzle pieces to it. So I'm going to share a few little more bits about EFT. If there's a specific issue that's really like a big thing for you and you'd like some help, do contact me and we'll see what we can arrange so that you can just, understand, more about how EFT works for these big complex pieces as well. So well done for all your tapping today. That was your first experience, and I think it's you made such brilliant progress with what you tapped. So let's just have a little extra. Here's a question I get really, really often is people go afterwards, well, I want to know, I've learned it a little bit. I want to now tap for myself, but now I don't know what words to say. You don't actually even need to use any words. You don't need to get the words right. I know how to use the words because I've been trained and I've been doing it for a long time. If you can actually just do some tapping in silence, when you focus on an issue that's very stressful for you, that you feel afraid about, just focus on it in your mind and just start doing some tapping. Just do a couple of rounds of tapping on all the points. Finish up here and just go straight back to the top of the head point. Do 5 minutes of tapping while you just think about your issue, because it's not actually the words that does the healing, it's the tapping itself. They've got good proof for that. They've done scientific studies with research with MRI machines. So here's what the words do. The words just actually help us to aim the tapping. So while we are using the words, it's like our body is tuned into the issue, and the tapping works best while we're actually tuned into the issue. So the words is like that hose over there. I hope you can see what there is. It's like a hose with spraying water, wanting to water the garden. It's not the hose that's watering the garden. The water is watering the garden, but the hose aims it at the right place. And the words, when we tap, is the same thing. It just helps us to aim. So the tapping does the work. The tapping is what helps it to calm down. That sends the calming signals to the amygdala. Silent tapping is just as effective as long as you're tuned in. If you're thinking of a shopping list, the tapping is not going to do much. But if you think about your problem while you are tuned in and you do the tapping, you can just do that as well. So here's some ideas on when to use EFT, right? And immediately, like if we're in a meeting or a phone conversation that's stressful, or you're sitting with somebody that also knows tapping, you can just right away do some tapping. And I'm going to show you some finger points now that is very, very useful for meetings, because you can put your hands under the desk. Nobody will know that you're busy tapping. If you are right-handed, look at your left hand. And is anybody here left-handed? No? Okay, good. So look at your left hand. The thumb, look at your thumbnail. The bottom right-hand corner of your thumbnail, just there on the little bottom corner. On that corner, just tap there with your other finger. And then you do the same with all the other fingers, the bottom right-hand corner of the second finger. And then the same with the third finger, bottom right-hand corner, and the fourth finger, and the pinky. So these hand points, remember I said when we tap over here, it goes to all the finger points as well. But when we're in a public situation and you need a bit of calming, the best thing to do is just quickly do your finger points. You can even do like this. Your thumbs can get to all the finger points, and then your third finger can get to the thumb. So while you're in a public situation, you're in a Zoom call, you hate being there, you can just do some finger points, or you're in a bus or any public situation. In the moment when you are in a stressful situation, that's the best thing you can do for yourself. You can even just press and hold while you just breathe normally. Just press and hold these points. So that's for immediate use. That's when we can use EFT. You don't need to say the words, because in that moment, if you need it, it means you tuned in. So no words necessary. So just press these finger points. Okay. So that's the first place where you can use EFT. You can use it after a stressful situation, like you just had an argument with husband or with somebody at work, and you just feel still upset and you can't get into the next part of your day. You can clear the stress, and you can just think about that situation and just do a couple of tapping rounds while you think about it. You can think about the look in their eye, the tone of their voice, like everything that was bothersome to you. And you just do a few tapping rounds while you think about that situation. Because if we clear it out right there and there, you don't have to carry it over into the rest of your day and have people sort of get the brunt of it while they were not really the people causing the situation for you. Before stressful situations like trepidation, anxiety, something could happen, fear, we can tap before something happens. Like I've got the speech to make and I'm so terrified about it. We can tap for those kind of situations. And I mentioned their choices tapping. That's a way that we can tap with making a choice. And I have a bit more to say to that, so I'll write you a little email about that, the choices method. And then we can work with EFT with patterns and beliefs, long-standing patterns. Like say, I'm a person who always is very anxious. That was who I was, always anxious. That's a pattern. It's not just a sudden thing for me. I'm always anxious. We can tap with EFT for those long-standing patterns, but that needs a little bit more, deeper work, maybe with a practitioner for those long-standing patterns. So EFT by ourselves is great for self-help, for emergency situations, for just clearing something out at the end of your day. So here's the deeper work. We call it the tabletop model. Tabletop is I'm an anxious person, and table legs are all the events in my life that caused me to become anxious when I was a young person. And when we take the stress out of those earlier events, the tabletop will start falling down as well. And so we do the deeper work with a practitioner about those things. So, okay, wow, this was a lot of talking. We did some tapping as well. So a quick note there, does anybody have any questions? No, this was a lot to take in, and I know not a full, there's so much more that I can do. And if we were talking, I could help you to get more specific with your own words. But I think this was a lovely way for you to experience it in a lovely group. And so in a few minutes, you'll notice a little email in your inbox just with a little feedback form from me to say thank you to you for attending. And I would so appreciate it if you're willing to fill in that feedback form for me so that I can know what to include next time, what can be done better. I take feedback really seriously, so I would really appreciate that. And last thing is a quick thought from you, perhaps, is if you think about where we started today, there was a lot of things that we covered. We covered a lot of ground. Um, what is one thing that you are taking away from today's call? What is one thing that you are taking away? Not whether you're going to implement it or anything. Maybe it was an aha, realization, insight you didn't have before, or maybe it was something you learned. So, and then type that for me into the chat box. Okay, thought provoking, love the space to breathe. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, we all need space to breathe. Mm. Taking time to acknowledge feelings is very, very important. Absolutely. We can't, in life these days, there's very little space for that, right? Just get on with it, soldier on, just, get your things done. Come, let's be professional here. Oh, my goodness. Feelings drive everything in life. So if we don't acknowledge them, they drive us. So, yes, to acknowledging feelings. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. This was great. My takeaway is that I can have control over my stress. Yeah, yeah, we just have to practice a little bit. This is new for you. It was such a brief introduction. There's so much more excuse me, I can teach you. And reach out to me. In your feedback form, there's a little thing that says maybe you want to continue with workshops, or I host workshops with EFT very often, like with a topic, and then let's tap for this topic or that topic. So you can always come to one of those, or if you want to do private work, you're more than welcome to reach out. And I am so grateful for your presence here today. Thank you for your time. You're so welcome. It was just a privilege for me to share this tool that really has meant a lot and made big changes in my life and my family's life. So reach out with questions. I'll send you the recording by tomorrow, and the slideshow as well. So you will have all the notes there. And if you've got any other questions that we didn't cover today, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to share. Learner here, input as well. So I like sharing. Yeah, some things in life are indeed out of our control. And if we can make peace with it and come to a little bit more acceptance, that is where the peace lies for us. We don't have control over a lot. So I'm grateful for your presence here today. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here and for being willing to help me record this so other people can benefit as well. I'm so grateful and hope to see you soon again somewhere else in the ethers, and have a lovely day and an evening. Take care.